What was that?
Oh, so it was a James noise. I thought it was like an effect from the video. What are you?
I'm your mum.
Oh no.
Today, James will be playing the role of Ben's mum.
Ben, fuck off, you cunt!
Good evening to you, James.
Good evening, Brandon.
Good evening to you, Ben.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Ben!
Good evening to our listeners. I'm Bran Reid. We are 3:30, which we never say, and this is the Graveyard Broadcast.
Woo! Episode
Yeah.
5.
Hell yeah, episode 5, which means we are now officially 5
On
episodes in, I guess.
Spotify.
We are now
Yeah,
officially
no-
official.
We can now apply for Spotify. So today we're going to be discussing aliens, Ben and I, which James has told us to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I have.
Ben, what's your story about today?
I'm going to be talking about the Lubbock Lights.
Who?
Lubbock Lights. You never heard of them? Famous
Is Louis
lights.
back?
I haven't even heard of them.
Louis?
What are you talking about, Brandon?
I'm going to be talking about a very famous abduction of a man and his wife. Sorry, that shouldn't have said it that way. A woman and her husband. No one's anyone's property. Okay. Back in 1961. Moving on. So anything, before we jump into it, anything spooky going on, boys? What have you been up to? What's in the news?
No, I've just been watching movies a lot since I've had some time off. Ready or
haven't
Not
watched-
was good.
Yeah, that's a horror movie.
I'd say it was. Kinda. It wasn't scary, but it was good. Highly recommend.
And Ben?
I've been watching, I've been getting back into all of the Crypt TV shorts on YouTube.
Crypt TV.
Yeah. Have you ever seen them?
I don't know. What are they?
They're like, it's a horror channel that do all of these mini short horror films, and they've started doing their own cinematic universe, connecting it all. But it's
No, that's
pretty
cool.
great stuff, and it's they do animated videos as well, and it's yeah, it's pretty creepy, a lot of the stories. I highly recommend checking them out. But yeah, it's got the look-see in it. It's got one that I was watching is called Miss Anity, which is about a spider woman, and it was really fucking creepy because I fucking hate spiders.
Cool. I finished My Best Friend's Exorcism, a great book, and now I'm starting a new one that's a parody of pop culture called Meddling Kids with horror elements. So, yeah.
I know you're describing it, and I'm really excited to hear what it's about.
Annabelle broke out. No, she didn't. But someone edited the Wikipedia page to say that
we can
Annabelle
dream.
escaped. And then the internet freaked out. And then I think it's the son-in-law of the Warrens, who's now looking after the Warren Museum, was like, "Oh no, what do you know? She's here." But yeah, that's such a good prank.
What are you talking about? This doll is totally Annabelle. She's right here, guys.
She's here, guys. Don't worry.
Cool. So Ben, do you want heads or tails?
I'll do heads.
Heads
Of
or
course you would,
tails?
Ben.
It's tails.
That's me.
So you're starting off.
I'm starting us off. All right.
Keen for this one.
Okay.
Let's go.
Are we going?
We're going. Okay.
Did Brandon go?
I was like, why are we silent?
All right. Barney tore the binoculars away from his eyes and bolted faster than he ever had back to the car. He threw himself into the driver's seat, lifted the parking brake, and stomped on the accelerator. "They're going to capture us," he yelled at his wife Betty, who sat in the passenger seat in absolute shock as they tore down the highway. The craft followed, impossibly silent. This is the story of Betty and Barney Hill's abduction.
I will just let it be known that I'm only picturing the characters from the Flintstones.
I'm picturing the dinosaur. Why do they have the names, man?
Yabba dabba do.
First it was Ronald, aka Roland. Now it's Barney, the dinosaur.
The year was 1961. The Hills lived in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, United States. Barney was a United States Postal Service worker, Betty a social worker. Barney was black, Betty was white, and interracial couples were extremely uncommon at this time. They loved each other dearly and hated when people looked on them with disapproval. However, they were fortunate enough to have friends and family who didn't judge or cause unnecessary problems. They were active in church, community leaders, and members of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Barney sat on a local board at the United States Commission of Civil Rights. They were upstanding citizens and had a very cute dog named Elsie. Their lives were all round pretty normal.
Is there a picture of the dog?
There is a picture of the dog.
Can we see it?
That will be posted to Instagram.
Until the night of September 19, when their lives would change forever, and they had an encounter that would inspire many books, movies, TV series, and more.
What TV series did it inspire?
There's been episodes based on them. American Horror Story based some characters off of them. They've just like kind of appeared in like references on like the X-Files and stuff.
Mad.
Just kind of around. Yeah. It was around 10:30 p.m. and the Hills were driving back to Portsmouth from a Canadian vacation in Niagara Falls and Montreal. They were back in their home state by now, on rural highways that stretched for miles and miles. As Barney navigated the long stretches of road, Betty was gazing dreamily up at the moon. Jupiter was visible tonight. The night sky was gorgeous. Betty noticed a star was moving. A bright point of light soaring through the sky. A falling star? No, it was moving upward. Puzzled, she continued to observe it as it moved erratically and started to grow bigger and brighter. Betty urged Barney to stop the car so they could get a closer look. It was also a good chance to let their dog Delcy get out and have a little walk. Barney parked at a scenic picnic area just south of Twin Mountain. Betty peered through their binoculars at the spectacle in the sky. Through the binoculars, she made out an odd-shaped craft flashing multicolored lights. It traveled across the face of the moon. Excitedly, Betty exclaimed that it was a flying saucer, much like the one her sister claimed to see several years earlier. She threw the binoculars towards Barney and he peered through. No, I'm sure it's just a regular airplane traveling toward Vermont. It's probably on its way to Montreal, Barney dismissed. Betty watched Barney's face scrunch up in confusion. The craft turned and rapidly descended towards their direction. This is when he realized this object that was a plane was not a plane. We need to get a closer look, Barney said, and they led Delcy back to the car and started heading towards Franconia Notch, a narrow, mountainous stretch of road. They drove on the isolated road, moving very slowly through Franconia Notch to observe the object as it came closer and closer. At one point, the object passed above a restaurant and signal tower on top of Cannon Mountain and came out near the Old Man of the Mountain, a series of cliff ledges that formed the shape of a face when viewed from the north. It was at least 1.5 times the length of the cliff profile, which would mean it was about 12 meters long. It was very flat and had a red light on either side. It seemed to be rotating. The couple watched the silent, illuminated aircraft dart around erratically and bounced back and forth in the night sky. Approximately 1 mile south of Indian Head, the object rapidly descended towards their car, causing Barney to stop in the middle of the highway. It was huge and silent. It hovered about 25 to 30 meters above their car in a field, filling the entire view of their windshield. It was like a huge pancake hovering above them. Barney grabbed his pistol and put it in his pocket, then climbed out of the car. He peered through the binoculars at the craft that floated above them. The sides of this flat pancake in the sky were made up of windows, and in the windows, over 12 humanoid figures were peering out. They appeared to have some kind of glossy black uniform and black hats. It seemed like they were watching him. In unison, all but one of the figures moved to what appeared to be some kind of panel, on the rear wall of the hallway that encircled the front portion of the craft. The one figure continued to watch him, and then Barney knew what it was. The one
sick?
figure... Huh?
Are you sick? Are you sick?
I got a runny nose.
Oh.
Just started.
Oh, no.
The one figure continued to watch him, and then Barney knew what it was communicating to him. He didn't know how he knew. He just knew that this figure was telling him to stay where he was and keep looking. The red lights on the sides of the craft extended out as two fins slid outwards from the sides, and some kind of long structure descended out the bottom. The craft approached, impossibly silent. They were now about 20 meters above and 90 meters away. Barney tore the binoculars away from his eyes and bolted faster than he ever had back to the car. He threw himself into the driver's seat, lifted the parking brake, and stomped on the accelerator. "They're going to capture us," he yelled at his wife, Betty, who sat in the passenger seat in absolute shock as they tore down the highway. The craft followed, impossibly silent, now directly above them. "Can you see it?" Barney asked, terror in his voice. Betty rolled down her window and stuck her head out to sea. Immediately, the hills started hearing rhythmic beeping or buzzing sounds. The noise seemed to be bouncing down and off the boot of their car. The car was vibrating now. A tingling sensation passed through their bodies as the chase ensued. Everything felt weird. Barney was struggling to pay attention to the road, and both of them felt their minds dull. They heard the beeping and buzzing sounds again. Wait, when did it even stop? Snapping back into reality, what just happened? They had traveled nearly 56 kilometers south, but how? They couldn't remember anything properly. They were confused. What do you remember? They managed to throw together some spotty memories that they don't even remember making. They definitely made like a sudden, unplanned turn at some point, but why? There was something blocking the road. An image danced through their head of a big, fiery orb in the road. What just happened? They pulled up to their home as the sun began to rise. They had odd behaviors, sensations, and impulses to do things, and they didn't even know why. Betty insisted their luggage be kept near the back door rather than in the main part of their house. Neither of their watches would ever work again. The leather strap for the binoculars were torn, but Barney couldn't recall them tearing. The toes of his best dress shoes were scraped. Barney was compelled to go to the bathroom and inspect his genitals, but wasn't sure why. He found nothing unusual. They each took a long shower and each drew a picture of what they saw last night.
Gotta check my dick.
Is it still there?
Gotta make sure, man.
Puzzled, the Hills tried to reconstruct the chronology of events after they saw the UFO, but their memories after the buzzing were incomplete. They then slept for a few hours. Betty awoke and placed her shoes and clothes from the drive in the closet. She noticed that the dress she had been wearing was torn at the hem, zipper, and lining. Later, she went back to retrieve the items from the closet. She noticed a pinkish powder on the dress. She hung the dress on the clothesline, and the pink powder blew away.
Got there.
The dress was irreparably damaged, and she decided to throw it away. Then, on second thought, decided to retrieve it, as it could be evidence. Over the years, 5 laboratories have conducted chemical and forensic analyses on the dress. There were shiny concentric circles, or concentric, on the car's boot that had not been there the day before. Even weirder, compasses would whirl rapidly whenever brought near the circle, but they would drop down when moved a few inches away. After spending the 20th trying to comprehend what was going on, the following day on the 21st, Betty phoned Peace Air Force Base to report the encounter. She withheld some details in the fear of being labeled eccentric. On the 22nd, Major Paul W. Henderson phoned the Hills for a more detailed interview. Henderson's report determined the Hills probably just misidentified the planet Jupiter. However, he would later change it to optical condition, inversion, and insufficient data. His report was forwarded to Project Blue Book, the U.S. Air Force's UFO research project. Betty borrowed a UFO book from the local library, written by retired Marine Corps Major Donald E. Kehoe. He was now head of a civilian UFO research group. On the 26th, Betty wrote to Kehoe explaining everything that happened. 10 days after the incident, Betty began having a series of vivid dreams. They continued for 5 successive nights. Never in her memory had she recalled dreams in such detail and intensity. But after the 5 nights, they stopped abruptly and never happened again. All day, the dreams sat in her head. They were all she could think about. She mentioned them to Barney. He was sympathetic, but not too concerned, and the matter was dropped. She did not mention them to him again. The letter Betty had written to Kehoe was eventually passed to Walter N. Webb, an astronomer in Boston who was also a member of the UFO research group. Webb met with the Hills on October 21st. In a 6-hour interview, the Hills explained everything they could remember. Barney believed to have developed some sort of mental block, and he suspected there were some portions of the event that he simply did not wish to remember. He definitely remembered the craft and the, quote, somehow not human figures. Webb stated that they were telling the truth and the incident probably occurred exactly as reported except for some minor uncertainties and technicalities that must be tolerated in any such observations where human judgment is involved. Like, for example, exact time and length of visibility, apparent sizes of objects and occupants, distance and height of objects, etc. In November, Betty decided to write down the dreams she had after the incident. We are now going to go into the dreams. Entering dream vision.
Mad.
Barney and Betty were in the car driving away when they had to stop at a roadblock. Men surrounded the car, and she began to lose consciousness. She struggled to regain it, and when she snapped back into it, she was being forced by 2 small men to walk through a forest. It was dark. She turned her head and saw Barney following close behind. She called out to him, but he appeared to be in a trance or sleepwalking. The men were somewhere between 5 feet to 5'4" and wore matching blue uniforms. They were wearing caps similar to those a military cadet would wear. They appeared to look almost like a human. They had black hair, dark eyes, prominent noses, and bluish lips. Their skin was a grayish color. Betty, Barney, and the 2 men ended up at the disc-shaped craft in the woods. It had a ramp descending down to them. They walked up the ramp, and once inside, Barney and Betty were separated. Betty protested, and one of the men that she would call the leader explained that if she and Barney were examined together, it would take much longer to conduct the exams. He spoke English. She and Barney were taken to separate rooms. A new man, similar to the others, entered to conduct her exam with the leader. Betty gave this man the nickname the Examiner. The Examiner had a pleasant and calm manner, but this one spoke English poorly, and she had difficulty understanding him. The Examiner explained that he would conduct a few tests to note the differences between their 2 species. He sat her on a chair, and a bright light was shone on her. The man cut off a lock of Betty's hair. He went on to examine her eyes, ears, mouth, teeth, throat, and hands. He saved trimmings from her fingernails, and after examining her legs and feet, the man used a dull knife, similar to a letter opener, to scrape some of her skin onto what resembled cellophane. The Examiner then tested her nervous system, thrusting a needle into her navel.
Oh.
This caused Betty agonizing pain. The leader quickly waved his hand in front of her eyes, and the pain vanished. The Examiner left the room, and Betty spoke with the leader. She picked up a book with rows of strange symbols, and the leader told her she could keep it. She asked them where they came from, and he pulled down an instructional map dotted with stars. The men escorted the Hills off the ship when a disagreement broke out amongst them. The leader told Betty she couldn't keep the book, as the other men didn't even want them to remember the encounter. Betty insisted to the leader that no matter what they did to her memory, she would one day recall the events. The men walked the Hills back to the car. Before leaving, the leader suggested they should wait to watch the craft depart. The Hills waited and watched, and once the craft had shot back up into the sky, they resumed their drive. Exiting dream vision. On November 25, the Hills were again interviewed by UFO researchers. It was brought up in the interview that it should have only taken the Hills 4 hours to get home from the location of the incident, but it had taken them 7 hours. Something the Hills didn't even realize. But now that they mention it, yeah, The area of their memory that was all fragmented and fuzzy was a whole 3 hours. They both remembered seeing a bright light in the road at some point, but reasoned it must have been the moon. However, they were informed this can't be the case, as the moon had set earlier that evening. The subject of hypnosis came up as an idea to elicit previously irretrievable memories. Barney was apprehensive, but he thought it might help put to rest Betty's nonsense dreams. Barney believed they saw a UFO and he saw figures in the windows, but he doesn't believe that they ever had proper contact, let alone abducted. By February 1962, the Hills were making frequent weekend drives to the White Mountains, hoping that revisiting the site might spark memories. They weren't able to locate the place the fiery orb blocked the road, but were able to eliminate several possible routes. Almost another year rolls through, and it's November. The Hills attend a meeting at their church where Captain Ben H. Sweet, sorry, I wrote that was autocorrect, Ben H. Sweat, of the United States Air Force.
Wow.
His name was Sweat. But it
Drag
must have
me
worked.
one go. That's going to be my new name.
Captain Ben H. Sweet of the United States Air Force is the guest speaker. He was there to promote a poetry book he'd recently released, but ended up delving into his interest in hypnosis. After the meeting broke up, the Hills approached Captain Sweat privately and told him about the experience. Sweat was particularly interested in the 3 hours of missing time. The Hills asked Sweat if he could hypnotize them to recover their memories, but Sweat explained he wasn't qualified to do so and cautioned them going to an amateur hypnotist such as himself. In March 1963, the Hills discussed their UFO encounter publicly for the first time at their church. September, Captain Sweat returned to give a formal lecture on hypnosis at the church. The Hills talked with Sweat again, and Barney mentioned at one point he started seeing a psychiatrist, Mr. Stevens, whom he liked and trusted. Sweat suggested that Barney ask Stevens about the use of hypnosis in his case. Next time Barney spoke with Stevens, Stevens referred him to Benjamin Simon in Boston. November, the Hills spoke before an amateur UFO study group in Massachusetts. December 14, the Hills finally met with the hypnotist Benjamin Simon. Simon quickly determined that the UFO encounter was causing Barney far more worry and anxiety than he was willing to admit. Though Simon thought that their encounter was impossible and didn't happen, the Hills definitely believed it happened to them. Simon should be able to disprove them with some hypnosis and let their minds rest. And Barney, of course, thought it'd help Betty get over her dreams of their abduction. Simon hypnotized Betty and Barney from January 4th to June 6, 1964 in separate sessions, obviously, not continuously for 6 months. Let's see, where was I up to? Simon conducted the hypnosis sessions separately so they would not overhear each other's recollections, and reinstated amnesia after each session so they wouldn't remember the memories that came up. So let's get into these sessions. Simon hypnotized Barney first. He recalled witnessing the non-human figures. His recollections were quite emotional, punctuated with fear, emotional outbursts, and incredulity. Incredulity? You know what that means?
No.
No idea.
It means disbelief.
I can't believe it.
Yeah. Barney spoke about being abducted and how frightened he was that he kept his eyes closed throughout most of the abduction and the physical examinations. Barney was under such distress that Simon knew it was best he didn't retain the memories after the hypnosis. Hypnosis vision. Let's go. Barney tore the binoculars away from his eyes and bolted faster than he ever had back to the car. The binocular strap tore in his haste. He threw himself into the driver's seat, lifted the parking brake, and stomped on the accelerator. "They're going to capture us," he yelled at his wife Betty, who sat in the passenger seat in absolute shock as they tore down the highway. The craft followed, impossibly silent. The UFO continued to chase them. The buzzing, the beeping, the vibrating. Barney didn't know why, but he felt irresistibly compelled to pull off the road and drive into the woods. Up ahead, 6 men were standing in the dirt road. The car stalled and came to a stop.
Oh, no.
3 of the men approached the car. They told Barney not to be frightened. Barney was still extremely anxious, and the leader stared into his eyes and told Barney to close his own. Exiting hypnosis vision. During the hypnosis, Barney said, "I felt like the eyes had pushed into my eyes." He described them being generally similar to the ones Betty described in her own hypnosis, but it wasn't the same as her dream. I don't have what they actually looked like, but there's sketches online. The beings would often stare into his eyes, Barney said, with a terrifying, mesmerizing effect. Here's some quotes about the eyes from various hypnosis sessions. "Oh, those eyes. They're there in my brain. I was told to close my eyes because I saw 2 eyes coming close to mine, and I felt like the eyes had pushed into my eyes. All I see are these eyes. I'm not afraid. They're not even connected to a body. They're just there. They're just up close to me, pressing against my eyes." Returning to hypnosis vision. The men led Barney and Betty up to their craft, where they boarded. Barney and Betty were immediately separated. He was escorted by 3 of these men to a room where he was asked to lie on a small rectangular exam table. Barney kept his eyes closed for most of the exam, but he felt a cup-like device placed over his genitals. He didn't experience an orgasm, but felt like a sperm sample had been taken. He felt the men scrape his skin and peer into his ears and mouth. A thin tube or cylinder was inserted into his anus and quickly removed. Someone felt along his spine and seemed to be counting his vertebrae. So you can see, like, it's very stereotypical because a lot of future alien abduction stories were based on this event.
Yeah. It seems very, like, reminiscent of, like, every single, like, abduction movie ever.
Yeah. The beings spoke amongst themselves in a language Barney didn't understand, but he still knew what they were saying. Anytime they would speak English to him, he wouldn't see their mouths move. Barney had never heard the term telepathy and referred to the way they spoke as some kind of thought transference. Eventually, the beings escorted them back to the car, and dazed, Barney watched the ship leave. The pair started driving again before a light appeared in the road. "Oh no, not again," Barney exclaimed to Betty. Exiting hypnosis vision. Barney mentioned under hypnosis that he reasoned it was probably the moon. However, as I said earlier, the moon had set several hours earlier. Barney spent part of the drive trying to recreate the buzzing and beeping sounds from earlier, but moving side to side, stopping and starting, all attempts to recreate it were unsuccessful. In Betty's hypnosis, she ran through the events of the abduction. They were very similar to her dreams, but had some notable differences. The capture and the release were slightly different, the technology on the craft was different, the physical appearance of the men was significantly different from the ones in her dreams. Barney and Betty's hypnosis recollections were consistent with each other, but contradicted Betty's dreams. So, yeah, basically, both the hypnosis sessions lined up perfectly, but it discounted her dreams as her dreams were kind of different.
Interesting.
Which would make sense. Usually when you dream, you don't get details perfect.
Yeah.
No, never.
I didn't get what the beings look like from the hypnosis sessions, but it's basically your traditional little short gray alien with the big eyes. Like, this is where that came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did it all kind of start from this one?
Yeah.
Is what you're saying? Like, just all the pictures, images.
Yeah, it's like,
That's cool.
It's very, like, out of all UFO abduction stories, this is definitely the most credible one. Okay. Betty also exhibited considerable emotional distress in her capture and examination. Simon ended one session early because tears were flowing down her cheeks as she recalled the events. Simon asked Betty to sketch a copy of the star map she was shown, but Betty explained that the map was a 3-dimensional projection similar to a hologram. Betty still tried to draw a star map, but only drew the stars that stood out in her memory. So, and also you can't really tell how perfect it would be.
Yeah.
But,
No.
yeah. The map consisted of 12 prominent stars connected by lines and 3 lesser stars that formed a distinctive triangle. She explained that the stars connected by solid lines formed trade routes, whereas dashed lines were the less traveled stars. Simon still didn't believe in the possibility of an alien abduction and speculated that Barney's recollection was probably a fantasy inspired by Betty's dreams. Barney rejected the idea, as each story had its own uniqueness when they split apart. For the first time, Barney accepted that they had actually been abducted and that Betty's dreams weren't as nonsensical as he believed. In 1965, Barney and Betty found the location they believed to be the place they got abducted.
Mm.
The hypnosis sessions became famous after Simon published an article about the case, and the story got picked up in newspapers, becoming a book named The Interrupted Journey by John G. Fuller. The book would include an image of the star map sketch. Many astronomers have tried to decode and theorize on the star map, trying to decipher the origins of the UFO, and there have been some theories put out there of, it might be these stars, it might be these stars. But Betty had no prior knowledge of astronomy or anything about stars or anything, so the star map was the first time in the history of the popular magazine Astronomy that it opened up to a debate on a UFO report. Barney died just a few years later on February 25th, 1969 from a cerebral hemorrhage. Betty died of cancer on October 17th, 2004, never having remarried. In her later years, Betty did claim to have seen UFOs a number of times. The story has gone on to be one of the most important and credible stories in the case for extraterrestrials visiting Earth and has inspired many films, TV series, comic books, art, and more. Our Instagram will feature the photos of the couple and their sketches of what they saw. You can follow that at Grave Broadcast.
And the dog. Don't forget, we'll find a photo of the dog and we'll post it.
Well, there's a family portrait of both of them with Delcy.
But especially the dog.
I did.
Because you never know, the dog might be the alien. What did the dog have to do with that story? It was an important detail that you brought up, was never mentioned. What happened to the dog,
He's
Brandon?
right, you know, like you brought it up at the start like it was going to mean something.
Yeah.
And he wasn't in the story the rest of the time.
It was just an important fact to me.
What happened, Brandon?
They had a cute dog. It was an inside job.
The Wikipedia page had a photo of them with the dog as like their main photo. And I was like, oh, that's cute. And then when I was trying to just get background information on them, I'm like, I'll mention the dog. Plus the dog was with them during the drive. So
I reckon the dog's got a bigger part to play.
Do you reckon the dog also got abducted and was like kind of mad that its story wasn't told? Or do you think it like stayed in the back seat the entire time and went, what the fuck is happening?
I think it would have stayed in the car. Though I didn't see it explicitly said. I also saw an interview with Betty, and she mentioned, like she was just telling like all her stories. She was such a like typical grandma. Like she's just going on rants and raves, and she's just like, she looks like a grandma. She dresses like a grandma, and she was talking about how she lost 2 blue earrings that night. And one time she came home and there was like a pile of dry leaves, just like in her kitchen, and in the dry leaves were the 2 earrings she lost.
Spooky.
Yeah. But yeah, this obviously inspired the aliens in American Horror Story Asylum, Ben, because you got like the whole interracial couple play
with like kit and armor, and like they get abducted, and then one's black and one's white, and
yeah, very very famous UFO case. But yeah, that's pretty much the story.
Interesting.
I reckon the dog ate the earrings and left them there.
Oh yeah.
I blame the dog.
I do think the dog was an alien the entire time.
Fair enough.
I believe all dogs are aliens, and that's why they should be worshipped and cared for. And
do you also think that the 5G towers are causing the coronavirus, Ben?
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's all around. It's the government, dude.
I watched a video this morning of like this company selling a USB that's 128 megabytes that apparently puts a shield around your house that blocks 5G towers.
It's fucking stupid.
Wow.
That's like $300.
Idiotic.
And apparently you can pull it out at your computer and carry it around with you, and it will leave a permanent shield around your body.
Oh, yeah?
That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And we
I've
just
got a
witnessed
full
to an
slide.
alien. We just listened to an alien abduction story, and that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I have more faith in like healing crystals and shit. And like in that kind
Exactly.
They were like, there's a website to it, and they were literally like using Star Wars references,
Oh no.
and it was like, But there's actually 2 real life scientists involved in making this, so they're obviously just trying to scam people.
Oh.
It just made me laugh. I can link you guys the video. That's all I have to say.
All right.
Don't just stare at me like that. It creeps me out.
All right, Ben. Tell us about the lights.
So
Louis.
I'm going to talk about the Lubbock lights. So the 1950s were a big time for alien sightings. A bunch of like UFO sightings happened just after Roswell in 1947. So the 1950s was like the height of the Cold War and looming threats of Soviet invasion in America. So like it caused the Red Scare with like everyone being frightened that they would be invaded by communists, and like everyone was terrified. And this caused a bunch of UFO sightings to happen of people claiming that they were either aliens or Soviet invaders. And
What's
it
the
also led to the
difference,
massive boom of alien movies.
Answer his question,
What's
Ben.
the difference between aliens and Russians, Ben?
One is scary and should be detained and dissected, and the other came from outer space.
One can make technology that works.
One made vodka, I believe, and that's all I know.
Nah,
Putin's giving us the vaccine, all right?
no, he's not.
No, he gave that to his
Dude's
daughter,
full of
didn't
so
he?
much shit. He's like, oh, I gave it to my daughter twice. He wouldn't do that. There's no way. Oh yeah, continue, Ben. Tell us more
So
about why
during the
50s were a peak.
1950s, everyone was afraid of being invaded by what they called the other that would threaten their society. Multiple sightings became rampant, especially after cases gained media attention, leading to mass UFO sightings becoming a huge trend in the 1950s. The most notable and best publicized mass sighting was the Lubbock Lights in Lubbock, Texas, 1951. So the Lubbock Lights were an unusual formation of lights seen over the city of Lubbock, Texas in August and September of 1951. The Lubbock Lights incidents received national publicity in the United States as a UFO sighting. The Lubbock Lights were investigated by the U.S. Air Force in 1951, and the story goes as follows. On the evening of August 25th, 1951, around 9:20 p.m., three science professors from Texas Tech were enjoying an evening outdoors in Lubbock when they looked up and they saw a semicircle of flying lights above them going at high speed, forming a V shape of 15 to 30 bluish-green lights as bright as stars but larger in size. Keeping an eye to the sky, the science professors noticed the lights return just an hour later in more of a haphazard formation. Over the next few days, dozens of reports flooded in from across the town of hundreds of people noticing the lights.
What do you think it was, Ben?
Well, we'll get into that, but I just find that this is
Answer my question,
by
Ben.
far the most thrilling of this happened over a 2-week period and hundreds of people witnessed these, and it's a bunch of scientists got involved, military got involved, and it's there's a bunch of solutions that could be the answer, but none of them we know for sure because of a reason that is so stupid that I'll get into at the very end.
Can't wait.
So, in the weeks after their initial August 25th sighting, the science professors and their friends observed the lights 12 more times. They attempted to measure the lights' angles, roughly calculated the speed of the lights, and noted that they always traveled from north to south. The three
What does that mean?
Wait, was it winter? What month was it?
in August. So August in America
Summer.
would have been summer.
Late summer.
Yeah.
In the northern hemisphere, birds fly south for the winter. Maybe they're super sensitive to the cold. The late summer is too cold.
Birds is a
don't know.
possible solution we'll get into later.
Science. Isn't science fun?
Maybe it's
Science.
the 5G.
Oh, yeah. It's back in 1950, 5G was everywhere. Everyone
Terrified
noticed
of faster
5G.
internet speeds.
Ooh,
5G is the reason we all have problems.
yeah.
Yeah.
The three professors became determined to view the objects again and perhaps discover their true identity. On September 5th, 1951, all three men, along with two other professors from Texas Tech, all gathered together and observed the night sky when the lights flew overhead again. According to one of the professors, the lights appeared to be the size of dinner plates and were greenish blue and slightly fluorescent in color. They were smaller than the full moon at the horizon, and there were about a dozen to 15 of these lights. They were absolutely circular, and it gave all of them an extremely eerie feeling as they gazed upon them.
So would they just kind of like go like flash, flash, flash like that?
Yeah, so they sort of just like flashed as they were sort of like shooting stars across the sky,
They'd
but
just
in a
But they'd be
formation.
very quick. It'd just be like,
Yeah.
okay. I can imagine that very well.
Yeah, there's photos.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, I'll get into that later on.
Will they be on our Instagram
so
at Grave
They
Broadcast?
will be. They will be. So out of the 100 people that witnessed them, a farmer's wife had described the lights as an airplane without a body and as white as her bed sheets. Which you could take that any way you want, depending on how white you think bed sheets are.
Depends on what you're doing.
Depends what color sheets you buy.
It was the 1950s as well, so
It could be like an off-white. Like you don't know there's different variants of white. It's
yeah.
a bad description. Guy's an idiot.
So, as well as the scientists getting the eerie feeling, hundreds of people also reported that the lights were said to emotionally and physically affect the people who witnessed them fly above, with one man who had claimed that he had been through wars saying that he had never been more frightened and instantly filled with dread as his stomach turned as he gazed upon the lights.
I have a joke, but it's way too late now.
What's the
Just say
joke?
it.
I came up with it at a good time, but then you kept talking, and I was like, oh. I was going to say a better term would be as white as Ben's dancing.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely white with no rhythm.
If the
Ben's
listeners
actually
could see it
God,
now.
stop.
I'm dancing. I said it would be shown. Here we go.
You get to listen to the audio
screen
of Ben's
recording.
sick moves.
Yeah.
I'm screen recording. I'll post it on Instagram.
That will not happen. But follow our Instagram anyway.
I'll
At
make sure it
Grave
does, guys.
Broadcast.
Don't worry.
Look at this ISO beard.
I know all of
Mine's
our
coming
ISO
back.
beards.
Yeah.
You're like the oldest one.
I can't grow facial hair for any listeners, so...
Oh, you can get a creepy
But his hair is
half
on
mustache
fire.
going.
Oh, yeah, I can get the creepy, like, don't let me talk to your children mustache going.
Yeah, just don't visit any parks and you're good.
Well, I can't at the moment, James.
Lucky for you.
Everything's closed.
So, jumping onto the topic of the photos, Texas Tech freshman Carl Hart Jr. even snapped photos of the so-called Lubbock Lights phenomenon, which were published in newspapers across the country and in Life magazine. After examining the photos, the newspaper editor Jay Harris told Hart that he would print them in the paper, but he would absolutely run Hart out of town if the photos were proven to be fake. When Hart assured him that the photos were genuine, Harris paid Hart $10 for the photos.
What a deal.
So I don't know how that translates from $10 in the 1950s to $10 now, but I'm going to say that's still a ripoff.
Hey, the guy took him, man.
Why didn't you do that research, Ben?
Well, I can look it up pretty easy now.
Fine. Waste our time. Listen to the
Waste
keyboard
our
click
fucking
and clack.
time, but- In the meantime, Ben, don't you live next to a park?
I do.
All right, enough said.
You know what I have really liked about Stage 4, though? Like, last night, I, like, went outside, and I was, like, in my yard, and it was so quiet. Like, there's no cars on the streets. It was really peaceful.
I don't know, my neighbours are blasting loud music all the time, so it's really, really not peaceful for me.
And, like, the neighbor to your house, it's like 14 people live there.
Yeah. I mean, there's no one on the other side of me. It's just, like, next to me, and that's it.
$106.08 is what it turns out to be. So it's not bad for a couple of photos of
All right.
lights.
$106
Yeah.
for some photos of lights that we could easily just...
Back
Yeah.
then,
No, back then it was
Yeah,
$10.
Back then,
James.
that would have been set.
all right.
Back then it was $10.
Back then-
We've translated it to
Back then it was
106.
$10.
Therefore,
Yeah.
the translation's been done. So you can't go, oh,
That-
back
that
then
could buy
we
you a
have the
couple
number.
meat pies.
It's literally $106 in value.
Yes.
Yes. Which is
back then,
$10 back
can
then.
get
It's
you
not
a lot.
$106 back then.
I'm not saying it's $106. Fuck. $10 can get you a lot back then. Jesus Christ.
Back then it's the same value.
Hey, you
It's
can get
$106.
a good meal
Did you
from
hear your
Macca's
parents
for
say,
$10.
like, back in
Back
my
then that's
day,
pretty good. What do you mean back then?
fucking-
Back then it was $10.
Yeah, which
back
could get
then.
you quite a bit.
Can't compare it because we've already translated it.
Yeah, but it can get you quite a bit.
$10.
You know, you go to the shop, shit would cost like under $1.
Yeah, so
You
it's
can fucking buy a
$106
lot.
worth of value.
Yeah, now. Yeah. It's not bad. All I'm saying, I'm not fucking going back then, $106.
That's what it sounds like.
I mean,
It's not.
but would you rather be paid
not.
$10 an hour or $106 an hour?
Well, if it's $10
Well,
an
it
hour back
depends
then,
on-
it's the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we did the translation, James.
Yeah, how much are you getting paid now, Ben?
Less than $10 an hour now.
Then shut up.
For the listeners who don't understand, Ben is unemployed. So please donate
But
to our
I blame
Patreon
COVID.
that we need to say.
Oh, yeah.
He was unemployed before COVID.
How long has it been now, Ben?
Oh, since February. I got
Wait, when
fired
was the
at
last time you
Valentine's
worked,
Day,
though?
December.
Well, I'm going to count February because they didn't
But
tell me.
officially, I didn't get fired until February. Last day I worked was December.
Well, ain't that a hoot?
But no, so
Sorry
it
to
was
share
a
your
Merry
personal
Christmas and a
information
Happy
on the internet.
Valentine's Day.
Oh, it was
How you
literally
feeling about it, Ben?
Valentine's
Do you
Day,
wanna
wasn't
talk
it?
about
It was
It was.
Valentine's Day because I said that's not the way I wanted to be fucked for Valentine's Day. It was getting fired.
At least they thought of you.
Yeah, at
first
least
time in
someone
months.
did for Valentine's Day.
Did you cry?
We're not getting into that, James. The heart photos were never proven to be a hoax.
So that's a yes?
The heart photos were never proven to be a hoax, but neither were they proven genuine. Hart has consistently maintained to this day that the photos are genuine. Curiously, the Texas Tech professors claimed that the photos did not represent what they had seen, since the objects that they had seen had flown in a U formation instead of a V formation depicted in Hart's photos.
Oh, it's one letter difference.
Yeah, so just that they changed up their flying patterns, the professors are like, oh no, it's different.
What if it was like an M? It could have been an M or a W, depending on when you were looking at it.
A U
It could
and a
have been
V
an
are very
M that they came
similar.
back and finished off to be an M.
I don't know.
People are dumb.
I think they're silly.
Yeah. It's like their lines aren't that straight, so a V turns into a U. Like,
So therefore, it's not real.
Yeah.
You've spent $10 on this. With $10, you could have bought how much value, James, in today's money?
Probably like 20 Coke cans.
It's not what I
You
asked.
could have bought so much chicken nuggets.
Oh, chicken nuggets for days, man.
$106 was the answer. All right, continuing, Ben.
But how many chicken nuggets is that worth today?
Yeah, how many chicken nuggets, Brandon?
I
Sorry.
know you worked at Macca's
Answer
for
my fucking
40
question.
years.
Oh, no, I got free nuggets. It doesn't count.
240 chicken nuggets.
See, at least Ben could give me an answer. Fucking hell, Brandon.
I don't go to Macca's and go, oh, nuggets, please.
Then you haven't been to Macca's.
No, it's disgusting. Anyway, continuing.
Anytime he comes over, we get Macca's. What are you talking
That's
about?
the only thing there. I haven't been to your house in months.
Anyway, they're not sponsoring us, so that's the end of the Macca's conversation.
They'll never sponsor us. Fuck your Big Mac.
Please sponsor us. Well,
After the Ronald episode, they're definitely not sponsoring.
ooh. Well, many observers offered incomplete or poorly expressed recollections of the lights. There's very little doubt that whatever people were seeing was something real. UFO sightings were usually one-off events, but these bluish-green lights were observed multiple times by hundreds of people. A team called Project Blue Book.
Project.
Project.
That is the new name of our podcast.
Project. A
what we call
team
our fan
called
base now.
Project Blue Book, which led the Air Force inquiries into UFOs, investigated the events by late September when hundreds of residents had reported seeing the lights over a period of 2 weeks. While investigating the Lubbock lights, the team also learned that several people in and around Lubbock had claimed to see a flying wing move over the city. Witnesses had observed a huge, soundless flying wing pass over their houses, and the team recognized this and knew it as the Air Force had possessed a flying wing jet bomber plane. And they felt that at least some of the sightings had been caused by the bomber plane, although they could not explain why, and according to witnesses, the wing made no sound as it flew overhead, despite the plane would have having to made a large engine sound.
That's plain ambience for you, baby. This is now. What's it called? What's it called when people get real
Lubbock
close?
lights.
No, in your ears and shit.
Oh, ASMR. I fucking hate that shit.
This is now an ASMR podcast where we will be making ambient plane noises. You know, and I know for a fact, I know at least one person goes to sleep listening to our podcast because it's like comforting, and you just go
Oh,
screaming.
really?
Yeah, you just screaming into the microphone. Ended that.
Wow.
Sorry.
Soothing sounds to fall asleep to.
We love you.
Thank you for listening. Please come back.
You're one of our projects now. You can't leave.
The name of the fan
Is that what
base.
we're calling fans? Projects.
Hey, projects.
Yeah.
Makes it sound like this is
Wow.
an experiment. They're our subjects. Like, hey, projects.
Oh,
This
just
is an
thought they were
experiment.
like rejected brothers, man.
Give that with some like really douchey like American college frat or something. Just like,
Yo,
hey, project. Just,
Oh,
what's up?
that person's definitely not sleeping now.
Oh, no.
They weren't sleeping as soon as we mentioned Ben's mustache, to be honest.
Well, they shouldn't be sleeping because we're a very entertaining podcast that keeps people awake and riveted with brand new information.
Right.
And then there's Ben.
And then there's James, who has
No, you
not
can't
said
steal my
shit
joke.
this entire episode.
Oh, I talked about the 5G conspiracy.
But whether the thing Ben's talking about might actually be real.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm talking about Ben's unemployment as well.
Wow.
You guys
You
were
had
picking
to-
on me and I flipped it on you.
You had
did.
to
He's
cut
very
me where
good
it
at
it.
hurts, James.
It's just so easy to pick on Ben. I'm sorry, man. It's just a defense mechanism.
Yeah, and he doesn't
really
have a
James is
personality
not
Me,
outside
I'm
of
just
that.
like, Ben. I'm not
James
really
is
into it,
hurt, so he
okay?
pushes it onto Ben.
Yeah. I'm dying inside, you know. I have a job.
Wow, be unique. We're all dying inside.
Damn.
All right, well, thanks for coming to the Graveyard Broadcast. That ends this week.
My AirPods fell out.
Wow, and he has to just flex the AirPods as well.
Yeah. Wow.
AirPods Pro,
We get it.
Pro.
You have money.
All three of us sport the AirPods Pro. Oh wait, no, Ben isn't wearing his.
You're not wearing yours either.
Yes, he is.
Whoa. Whoa, what's that?
Proven
Fine.
wrong.
I'll just be the poor one of the group.
You are
You
the
can
poor one of
Venmo
the
me
group.
at-
You're very good at it.
Please
That's exactly
send
what
money
you are.
to a poor ginger boy in need.
He won't go to your parks, he promises.
So, to get back on the Lubbock lights, the team's official conclusion was that the lights were
yeah.
most likely the plover birds or the bellies of migratory ducks, reflecting the luminescence from Lubbock's newly installed mercury vapor street lamps.
What?
I know, they sound dangerous, but I don't know what they are. It was the 50s. So many people who saw the
Good
lights,
joke.
however, I know it was pretty funny. It was better than anything you've come up with. However, many of the people who saw the lights, however, refused to accept this explanation, arguing that the lights were moving simply too fast to be birds. And when one person tried to duplicate Hart's photos by photographing the reflective bellies of the birds, the photos turned out to be too dim to be developed and looked completely different from Hart's original photos.
Can we go back to the ducks?
What about them?
What was the theory there?
Do we not
That
listen?
they had reflective bellies.
Ducks were like that high in the sky. That's pretty cool.
Migratory. They were moving south for the winter. Brandon mentioned it earlier.
They're moving south,
True.
moving south for the late summer.
I just like how they said it was brighter than the stars, though.
Yeah,
Like, really?
but they thought it was birds. But here's the thing that throws it all completely off is
You
that
know what else is brighter
apparently
than the stars? Your smile. That wasn't directed to either of you in particular, so whoever claims it, it's yours.
the listeners,
That's one of you, projects.
that name can't stick.
Yeah, I don't like it. I hate everything about it. There's not a single thing
Blame-
about it I like.
No, not a
Blame Ben
single
on that
thing.
one.
So apparently, a solution was actually given to what the lights were, and a scientist actually sat down with Project Blue Book and actually listed out and described the event as a commonplace and easily explainable, naturally recurring phenomenon. However, due to the team promising that scientist complete anonymity and broadcasting the solution would lead to giving away the scientist's true identity, the true solution could never be revealed. So therefore, no one actually knows what happens outside of the team.
Cool story, Ben.
I like it.
I mean,
I
I was
like it.
waiting for one of you to react to it, but James just dabbed, so sure.
I
Yeah,
was fucking around with the camera.
if the team is so anonymous, right? Continue, Ben.
So the team behind Project Blue Book did state that the real solution wasn't birds and wasn't refracted light, and it most certainly wasn't UFOs, but they could not divulge any more information. So it still remains a mystery to this day as to if the lights were truly that of a UFO or if they were something natural recurring. But despite whatever they were, the event still stays in the minds of Lubbock's older residents to this day.
Well, if they were so natural recurring, why haven't I heard more about them? Why haven't I
Well,
seen
they also haven't come back. It was just for that two-week period from
what I'm
August to
saying.
September that they saw them. So
very
That's
what do you call
So-
it? Isolated incident
yeah, but seen by hundreds of people.
seen by hundreds of
So
people.
the Lubbock lights have been noted in some media. So they were featured prominently in the 2002 sci-fi 10-episode alien miniseries called Taken by Steven Spielberg, in which one of the aliens poses as a human in the Lubbock area for a brief period of time. There was also a 2000 and... What?
Liam Neeson didn't do that. What?
No. Different Taken. This was in
Nah.
2002, long before Liam Neeson had a specific set of skills.
When did that movie come out? Can we talk about Taken?
No,
Ooh, I don't know.
The only good movie in the trilogy.
haven't watched them.
Just watch the first one.
It doesn't really
So
interest
in-
me.
It's good.
I've only seen the first one, so I can't comment on the rest.
They kind of suck. Anyway, go on about the.
So in
Taken
2005,
movie.
in 2005, there was a film called The Lubbock Lights that was released about the music scene in Lubbock, which describes some theories of the lights by musicians from the area. And in 2006, Lubbock-based alternative country band called Thrift Store Cowboys wrote and recorded a song entitled Lubbock Lights on their
Was that the
third
Macklemore
album,
one?
Lay Low While Crawling or Creeping. So shout out to those guys.
Shout out to Macklemore.
And in the third episode of the 2019 History Channel television series Project Blue Book, inspired by the original team that investigated a bunch of UFO sightings, there was an episode titled The Lubbock Lights, which was based around the Lubbock Lights incident. And for some reason, Brandon and James are doing the Macarena.
Yeah.
Macarena.
But yeah, so that's all the creepy information I have. What do you guys think of it?
I think
You're pretty
it's
creepy.
aliens.
I also think it's aliens. It's got to be something like
Either
space related, whether it
aliens
was like
or
a
it's
series of
ghosts.
shooting stars or like asteroids shooting by, like when maybe it was a meteor shower, but like it's got to be something space related.
Or
I think it's
ghosts.
a duck.
Could be ghosts. Maybe
Could be.
it's something spiritual.
Ooh.
Have you heard of like the skyquakes, like trumpets in the sky and stuff?
Nah, what are they?
No, we'll talk about it another time. Your story just reminded me
Tune
of them.
in.
It's a known phenomenon that exists where there's weird horn sounds that come from the sky. It's been reported all around the world. It's documented. It's real, but no one knows what it is.
Wow.
Yeah, it just reminded me of that. There's different weird sounds that come from the sky. So you got these, which you have been recorded. It just sounds like apocalyptic horns from like the sky. And some people think it's like the horns, the apocalypse horns from heaven or some shit, or it's aliens or whatever. And then there's some noises. It's like it's called the hum. Have you heard the hum? There's a completely different one.
Nah.
The hum is
I haven't
a noise.
heard any of this shit.
It's heard. People can hear it. It's like and it drives some people like crazy. Like they hate the noise, and it's just this hum that happens around. It exists. Again, we know it exists. Don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And microphones can't pick up the sound, so they can't even record the sound.
Is that like the stuff that's like if you go into like a fully soundproof room, people go insane from it?
No,
Is that like...
that's just from sensory
like-
deprivation.
Because, like, that shit, like, I really want to try one day.
It's fine.
Ben disappears, you know why.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I'm just
thanks
in
for
a room
listening
with no
to the
way out.
Graveyard Broadcast. Ben goes
Thank you,
insane.
Brojax.
Oh,
Yeah. Don't do
That
that.
name's not going to stick. That's just an episode 5 thing.
now shout out to our man Louis Pasta, who was an episode 3 thing.
Yeah, and Ronald. Actually, Ben fucked it up. It was Roland.
Which we mentioned in episode 4, but still.
I still like bringing it up.
Ugh.
You really fucked it, Ben.
No,
Ronald
I
was
didn't.
funnier
It was
than
an
Roland.
alias.
All right.
Yeah, it doesn't
I guess
really
I'll
matter.
tell you guys what next week's theme is. While
Yeah. I
I'm
was
wondering
trying
what it
to
is,
find my
yeah.
notes. Hold on. Yeah. No. I can't find my usual notes.
We're waiting.
Hold on. You have to put a pause
Everyone's
for a
on their
second
seats with anticipation.
while I try to find the notes of like what to say on the outro.
Ben's blue.
Da-ba-dee-da-ba-die, da-ba-dee-da-ba-die, da-ba-dee-da-ba-die.
Where the fuck is it?
All right, it's getting really cringy now. Please hurry up, Brandon.
Wow, says
don't
the
know what
guy
to do
who was
without you.
dabbing and doing the Macarena.
No one could see that, though.
Ooh, but they could hear
fine.
it.
Okay.
They probably could.
All right.
Take us
so
home, Brandon.
Next week's theme for you boys is where did everybody go? We're talking about mass disappearances or group disappearances.
Ooh. Spooky.
Just imagine that John Travolta meme.
Walking in and... Where is everyone?
So you can talk about large groups that disappeared or even just a couple of people that disappeared. But
Hell yeah.
multiple people that disappeared in groups. Social medias, Ben.
So, social medias for the Graveyard Broadcast. You can email us with thegraveyardbroadcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Insta @GraveBroadcast. And you can find us on YouTube @The Graveyard Broadcast. You can also follow us at 3:30, which is us, which is on Twitter and Insta @HP3Official, and on Facebook at 3:30.
Also, all our individual Instagrams are in the episode description. We've never said that, but yeah, they're there as well. I don't know them by heart, though,
Oh,
to
yeah.
say them.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Please subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening, or favorite, or follow, or whatever it has. Give us a rate and review wherever you're listening, but also Apple Podcasts would really help, even if you don't use that to listen. I make music solo as Bran Reid, and I also make music under the name Deck of Hearts, and I'm going to play a sample in the outro. Please go listen if you like what you hear. The link will be in the episode description. Today's song is Far Away. And yeah, I'm Bran Reid. Joining me are my two gorgeous co-hosts.
James.
And I'm Ben.
And
Yeah, you are.
have yourselves
Yeah.
a good evening.
Good evening.
I'm meant to go first. Good evening.
Call me back
Good
Now you, Ben.
evening.
whenever you're free.
There you go.
Thank you. Good
We
evening.
fixed it.
I'm so far away from you, and I can't even tell you what I've been through. The leaves fall down, the cold will come, and I don't even care if it